You're listening to The Greg Kelly Show.
Well, it would have been awfully nice if AOC was sent back to, where does she really live? Westchester County somewhere, or Silicon Valley. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the most notorious member of Congress, and I really admire Marty Dolan for running a very, very serious campaign against her in the Democrat primary. He's a Wall Street veteran, did not knock her off. It would have been great, but he's back in the political game again, this time running for Marty Dolan, public advocate, right?
Correct. Today, I'm confirming my candidacy for the role of public advocate.
You are confirming the candidacy. All right, public advocate. That's Jumaane. What does the public advocate do, first of all?
So the public advocate is supposed to advocate for New Yorkers, make the city better. It's supposed to monitor the other city agencies. And I think what's happened with the current public advocate is they've advocated for causes that are good for some of New York City, but they haven't seen the whole picture, which is we've had 200,000 illegal immigrants come into the city, and there haven't been any advocacy against that. In fact, there's been support for the sanctuary city policy.
That's interesting. You're right. There's been the public doesn't like it, but no one's been advocating for the public.
Well, that's
where a public advocate comes in.
There you go.
And Jumaane Williams likes all this crap.
He's a socialist, so I'm really campaigning against socialism. And the question I have for New Yorkers, and I've run against Jamal Bowman, I've run against AOC, I'm going to be running against Jumaane Williams or whoever is running. The vote is going to be next June. Have we had enough socialism after 5 years, or do we want more socialism? And I think the answer is New Yorkers have had all the socialism that they want, and we need to go back to basics.
Wait a second. You ran against Jamal Bowman and AOC.
Yeah, I started out my campaign against Jamal Bowman. I was the first candidate to announce against him. And then when George Latimer came in, I stepped aside because I thought he'd be a better candidate.
And he won.
Proved to be the case.
Yeah.
And I moved my race against AOC.
All right.
So I'm a devoted anti-socialist is probably a simpler way to say it.
And that should not be a radical platform, but socialism is kind of like settling in here, weirdly enough. Although you're out there every day, do you sense that? What's the mood? How would you characterize the mood of New York City right now?
Fed up. Enough is enough. And if you go into this whole concept of the Trump Democrats are former Democrats who are moving into the Republican Party because they feel like they're being pushed out of their own party by the radical left. So really what the Democratic Party needs to do, what New York needs to do is say, listen, we've seen what the left can do. And not just Jumaane Williams, but Brad Lander, the controller. And on the city council, you've got some very radical far left members. But to the people of New York, I say, you can vote. You can change this in June. And we are all focused on Eric Adams and his problems. But the core issue facing New York is, has socialism and progressive policies improved the city in the last 4 or 5 years, or have they made it worse? And I think everybody thinks they've made it worse.
Yeah.
And that's why you're seeing, Trump pick up support in places like the Bronx and in the Latino community, because they just they're fed up with everything that's going on.
So you're running as a Democrat, and we like you because, look, you ran against AOC. She is the worst person in the world. But now, how free are you to be you? I mean, Democrat Party, they're famous for their discipline these days. Like, how do you feel about Kamala Harris? Let me ask you this. Even if you wanted to, and maybe you already have and you will right now, could you come out against her?
I was one of the first people to advocate for Biden to step down, and I was one of the first people to advocate for Harris to replace her instead of there being kind of an open process in the middle of the summer, which would have been chaotic. I think that in New York, people look at what's going on their street, and you've got dirty streets, you've got crime, you've got recidivism, which is repeat crime. You got conditions where in Roosevelt Avenue, where we're having a march on Sunday, if people want to come out and support us. You have prostitution right next to elementary schools. This is what people care about in New York. And one of the things I think that we really need to do is understand the difference between what I would call, politics on its broadest scale, which is, left and right, and your mission as a city. Your mission as a city is to deliver municipal services to your citizens at an excellent standard. And
Wait a second. I thought it was about gender affirmation. I mean, I thought it was about finding out who I am sexually and expressing that.
There you go.
No, I know. I hear you loud and clear. So wait.
But the thing is that the socialists get away with talking about that stuff because they're not good at excellence on the basic services. So what they do is they talk about Palestine, or they talk about gender affirming rights, or they talk about, Kamala Harris and Trump. That's not the job of a city. The job of a city is to run the city. And, to do that, then you need to say, well, what does it mean to be good at something? And you need to look at all the great cities of the world, look at London, look at Paris, look at Zurich, and say, are we really doing the best that we can do at our jobs? Not about the stuff where we have opinions about things that are completely judgmental.
All right. So, well, terrific. I like it. Excellence is a word you don't hear about very often anymore.
Municipal excellence should be the job of every city official. And that's where you get into some problems with the Adams administration, because you should hire the best people for the jobs, not necessarily the people who were, from your team or whatever. And so you need to, there's so much outstanding human capital in New York, whether it's Wall Street or the advertising agencies or the music business or wherever. If we pull everybody who's really at the top of their professions and change, we want to flip the script. The expression I use is what, with my daughter, when we moved to New York, my daughter.
How old is she?
She's now in her 30s, but when she was 7, she whispered in my ear and said, "Daddy, could we ever get to live in New York?" And I was like, that's the spirit. You get to live in New York. You don't just live in New York. It's a privilege to live here. It should be a privilege to work for the city government. We should be pulling in the best people from all over the city and get this thing turned around super fast.
All right. So let's talk about you. Forgive me, but how old are you?
I'm 67 in 2 weeks, and you're welcome to send me a birthday card.
No, come on. Guys don't do that for other guys. I can't. People do. Are you going to make a big deal out of your birthday? You're going to have a party and all that stuff?
I would never make a big deal of my birthday.
I mean, I can't believe it. I get these letters from a congressman, and we're supposed to buy him birthday candles. Seriously, contributions, birthday candles. Unbelievable. All right. You went to college where?
I went to Union College, and then I got an MBA from Harvard.
Wow. Did you go right from Union to Harvard?
I spent 2 years working on Wall Street as an equities trader in between.
And then what was that like?
It was great and good story. So I was working as an equities trader. You're all there like on the assembly line. And there was the reason that I got into Harvard Business School because I wrote the story about what I did. And so what I did was there used to be this difference between the guys who were trading and the back office. So the back office were the guys behind the glass and they were settling the trades. They were mostly Latino. Well, my family's from Latin America. And there were all these errors. So I went to my boss. I was 21 years old. And I said, why don't we take this window down and we'll work together? Because these aren't trades. These are people's retirement money that we're dealing with here. And there's paper lying around all over the place. So we took down the wall. We got the people in the back office feeling like they were full part of the team. We got the traders to understand that like you couldn't leave the office at 4:30 until everything was settled perfectly. And that's the reason that I was accepted at Harvard Business School, because when I was 21 years old, I knew that you just had to work together as a team and you had to have high standards.
Take down the petition and everybody's got to work a little bit harder. And you got into Harvard. Good for you. No, that's actually radical. You saw a problem and you fixed it.
Yeah, for whatever reason, and I just didn't like the idea that there was this glass wall and there people were kind of like knocking on the window. I was like, take the window down and we'll work together as one team.
All right, so you go to Harvard. Was Harvard worth it? Was it good experience or what?
It was great. And you have 800 people in your class. They're from all over the world. And after that, I went to work in Europe for a while. And then, because my daughter wanted to come back to New York.
What country in Europe?
I worked in England. I worked in France. I worked in Switzerland. I worked in Portugal. I've seen probably 100 cities around the world. And so I think it's been a great background to understand in some areas, New York is the best. We all know that. But in some areas, we can improve things very quickly if we just study and say, let's really just get the best lessons from it. You lose our pride and admit that we could do things better.
It's interesting, and I like what you're saying, and I think you got the other stuff covered. I met a guy once who wanted to be mayor, and he said, well, I said, what makes you think you could be mayor? And he said, well, I think I'm a very good manager. And somebody at the table said, well, that's great, but that's like 87th of the things you have to be mayor. You got to be this, that, and the other thing in political and all these other things. And you definitely have your eye on all that stuff. You've learned a lot about the political game. For instance, you're not going to self-finance, and you're doing it for a reason. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the way it works in New York is you have 8 times matching funding if you can raise money from 500 different people and get to $125,000 of donations at $250 a donation. If you can't do that, you're not going to have enough money to win a citywide race. So for those of you, here's the commercial. It's martydolan.org in case anybody wants to go there.
Why .org? Why not .com?
It was taken. There's a Marty Dolan out there in Montana somewhere. So, if you can't get 500 people or 1,000 people to support you, you're probably not going to win the election. So we've got 5 months until it's time to get on the ballot, to go raise the money. We'll be getting around the city. We'll be, getting around meeting people. And I think the other thing you need to understand is New Yorkers know what it takes to be good in the city. The number one thing you need is a clear vision. The second thing is you need sheer political willpower. You need to know exactly what you want to do, and then you have to just be bullheaded and go do it. So we saw it with Ed Koch. We saw it with Bloomberg. We saw it with Giuliani in his first 7 years. They knew exactly what they were doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to say New York's doing 8 or 9 things, not all well. Let's cut back. Let's do 5 or 6 things incredibly well and cut back on the things that we're not doing well.
I love it. All right, so who's the competition? Who's out there?
The incumbent is Jumaane Williams.
But he may be getting a promotion.
He may be mayor. He may be running for mayor. I don't think he's been very energetic as a public advocate in the context of the entire city. I think he's advocated for certain causes.
He's the pits. Who else might be running?
There's a number of other candidates who filed, but the question is really who gets the support. So, let's see. And we're going to take on all comers. I think the message is, if New York wants more socialism, I'd be surprised.
All right. I want to see, are you ready to go negative? Are you ready to sling some mud? Negative ads, right? It's part of it. You got to get down there.
There's no chance I'm going to do that. Zero.
What? Wait a second. An ad that talks about the negatives of your opponent. You're not going to do that?
I'll talk about the negatives of their policies and the way they approach the job. But, I didn't go negative against AOC. Of course, I didn't get a lot of votes, but I was against her policies, which are terrible. I was against
But that's what I mean. You could be, the tone is negative, but if it's on the merits, if it's on the substance, then it's okay, right?
Yes, you have to compare and contrast what you can do versus what the other persons do. So, for example, we're going to have a completely different approach to public housing. We're going to try to create what I call real equity at last, or getting real with the projects. We're going to try to create a path for home ownership for 500,000 people in New York City. This is really like a far-reaching policy that is going to basically create more of an equity culture and a responsibility culture in New York City, instead of the culture in New York City, which is, hey, the city's got to take care of us forever.
All right, but now you're trying to rearrange attitudes a little bit, and the equity word gets some people scared, right? The equity word. I've been hearing people make promises about housing. You talked about how you want to just deliver on a couple of things. That sounds a little pie in the skyish. Not that I'm, look, you know more about this stuff than I do, but it does sound a little pie in the skyish. What about just, no crime, cleaner cities, stop with the bikes. How do you feel about bikes? They're out of control.
You have to police the bike lanes. If you have law and order, the first thing you have to fix is understanding between the 400 citizens and the one cop is there has to be respect for law and order. Otherwise, you can't run the city.
Why do we have to get more housing? Seriously,
not more housing. I'm talking about less housing. I'm talking about giving.
What you just said, 500,000 people
into a path to own the houses that they live in.
Path to ownership. I mean, yes. That's on them. They got to figure out their own finances. We need the streets clean. We need to be able to go in there and buy shampoo without talking to 2 different guys. And the police need backup. I would love it. I'm all in, Marty. How do we help? MartyDolan.org. Marty Dolan, DOLAN.org. You got a great picture in front of a bridge there. Very, very. Look. That's a man with a vision.
I got my hair combed for that.
You married?
Nope.
And
This is my job. Basically running for public advocate. I'm running against the socialists. I spent the last year and a half running against socialism.
This is a great way to meet somebody, Seriously, you're going to be going places all day long.
I need to meet 500 people. That's what I need to meet.
Wait, okay, 500 people to make the finance thing?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll do that. I'm pretty confident
What's
we'll
the
do
deadline?
that. Before balloting. So let's say March 1st.
All right.
You've got 5 months to meet 500 people, get some donations, get around the city, talk to people, get your name out. That's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah, Eric Adams did that a little bit too easily.
You got it,
right?
You have to
500 people.
You have
got
to
one
do
guy in Turkey to do it.
The problem is the mentality. The mentality is you have Brad Lander, who's kind of a socialist. You have Jumaane Williams, who's a member of the DSA. You have the city council, the most radical people in the city council. But look what we've done. Just go back a year. We've replaced Jamal Bowman with George Latimer. We've replaced George Santos with Tom Swazi.
We got a soft spot for George Santos around here.
Sorry about that.
No, he's got a bum rap. But keep going.
And we're on the verge of replacing Eric Adams. Eric may stay in office, but he's not going to be reelected mayor. We know that. So you can turn things around quickly. This is what New Yorkers know. We've been through it with Koch. We've been through it with Giuliani. We've been through it with Bloomberg. All you have to do is vote in better candidates. And I think if you do that, what's going to happen is there'll be a lot more people who come in behind me. There'll be people from Wall Street. There'll be people from advertising. There'll be people from media who say, listen, if this guy can do it, we can do it.
When's the primary?
The primary's in June next year.
I can't stand that it's in June. The last day of school, probably.
They do it right before everybody goes away.
They want nobody to turn out. Well,
but
anyway.
hold on. They have early voting.
Oh, God.
So you might be able to do
It's another thing to worry about. Marty, we like you a lot. Anything we can do to help. Marty Dolan, go to martydolan.org. He's a candidate for public advocate. It's basically, when you think about it, it's the number 2 spot in the city in many ways.
That's
number
right.
2. So good luck, Marty. Keep in touch, okay?
Thanks very much.
Marty Dolan, martydolan.org, and we'll be right back.
Greg Kelly.